Hey there, 1010 fans. I am about to review with you the final exam review sheet, and this will be the very last video that we do this semester, so it's kind of sad in a way. So if you want to follow along with me, go to content up at the top of our Brightspace page. Click on the left-hand sidebar, final exam materials, and then look for 1010 final exam review sheet. So first I'm going to give you just some general instructions here, and they are very important to remember. So the final exam will only be open and visible to you from 8 o'clock a.m. until 11:59 p.m. on Monday, December 6th. So that's actually a long chunk of time. That's all day long until 11:59 p.m. It will not be accessible or visible to you before or after those times. So you have to take it between 8 o'clock a.m. and 11:59 p.m. on Monday the 6th. And if you have any sort of weird conflict there, you have a valid conflict, you can let me know. Go to assignments and look for final exam, and there you'll see the attachments that you'll need. Again, you can't see it before 8 o'clock a.m. on the 6th, but you'll find the attachments you'll need to open in order to read the text that you'll be writing about, along with the specific instructions from the English department about taking the final. You will not be able to submit the final again after 11:59 p.m. on Monday, December the 6th, and you will receive a 0 for the final if you have not submitted it, because it will close promptly at 11:59 p.m. The English 1010 final exam consists of a brief summary and response essay that you will write in response to a short text that you will first read through carefully. And if you recall, our very first major paper, paper 1, was a summary and response. So you'll essentially be doing the same thing that you did in paper 1. However, and this is important, this time around your paper will be much shorter, only 2 full paragraphs in length, just 2. That is it. So it's not a complete paper, it's just 2 paragraphs. Note that you may and you should use your Little Seagull handbook as you're writing. You may also look up any words from the text that you'll be reading that maybe you do not understand as well in a dictionary, either a hard copy or online. I encourage you to read footnotes, if there are any, in that final exam text, because they'll help you understand wording in the text with which you may not be familiar. And understanding a word might mean the difference for you there in doing well and not doing well. The final exam for English 1010 is always, across all sections of this course, administered cold. And that is to say, students do not actually see the real text they'll be writing about or the prompt question that directs that writing until they take the final exam. And the reason for that is because the department wants to get an honest assessment of what you've learned in the class and how well you are doing. We will, however, spend review time this week looking at a sample text, and I encourage you to try your hand at actually writing a summary in response to that practice text and to watch my accompanying practice run video. We'll use May Sarton's The Rewards of Living a Solitary Life as our sample essay for our practice run. And you can refer to the text and instructions on this piece. And to locate it, go to Content, Final Exam Materials, and Final Exam Practice Run. And again, you can watch my video of the same title. So here are the specifics for this final exam. You'll double space your paper, and you'll type in Times New Roman 12-point font, just as we have all semester. That's standard for college writing. You'll use a standard heading in MLA formatting at the top of your paper on the left as follows: your name, my name, the course name, and the date in MLA formatting. So not December 6th, 2021, but 6 December 2021. If you do continue your essay into a second page, you'll place your last name and the page number in the upper right-hand corner, and I've given you an example there on the sheet. You do need to include a brief title centered in the middle of the page under your heading, and your title does not have to be fancy. For example, it could just state the purpose of your paper, a summary in response to the rewards of living a solitary life, or whatever the title of the real piece obviously will be. And remember, when you use someone else's title as part of your title, you have to punctuate that title. You have to put it in quotation marks or in italics if it's the title of a longer work like a book. Remember that the titles of short works are always placed in quotation marks, not in italics. Only longer works are in italics. So anytime you use the title of the piece you're writing about, even if it's part of your title, place it in quotations, because we can be fairly sure that whatever the work is, it's going to be a short work whose title will be placed in quotation marks. So again, your essay will only be 2 paragraphs long, so you do not need, nor should you use, a traditional hook. Do not do that. Rather, you want to begin your essay with a short introductory sentence or two that introduces your reader to the author. So you give us the author's full name, you give us the title of the piece you're writing about, the main idea of that piece, and your thesis. So here's an example that you want to follow. In The Rewards of Living a Solitary Life by May Sarton, the author expresses her belief that being alone is not necessarily a negative experience. So no hook, none whatsoever. You go straight to it. You give us the title, punctuated correctly with quotations. You give us the writer's full name, and you give us the main idea of the piece, that being alone is not necessarily a negative experience. In fact, it can be quite fulfilling. And then here's your thesis. A brief summary in response to this piece reveals the author's supporting points and her effective ability to successfully communicate her ideas. So, as you continue with this first paragraph, which is the summary part, you focus on summarizing. So you're going to offer a summary of the author's main idea and just 2 or 3 of his or her best main supporting points and examples. So remember, a summary is concise, it's condensed, it's non-personal. It's telling the main idea and the main features of a text only. So you will not summarize or mention minor details at all. You should only state the author's main idea, his or her main message or thesis, and just 2 or 3 of the author's main points. And in this part of your essay, this first paragraph, which is the summary, there's no separate introduction, there's just the summary. You will not express any personal view or opinion of the writer's ideas at all, other than to perhaps use a word maybe like effective or successful, as shown in my example above. Your job here is just to summarize, to tell the reader what the piece is about. Now you have to quote at least once from this text that you're going to be writing about, whatever it may be, in the summary portion, and cite that quote correctly in MLA formatting. If you don't do that, you'll have a lot of points deducted. So it's good and it's bad that this is short, right? I mean, it's good that it's short and you don't have to write a full paper. But the difficult part is that if you mess up, if you don't quote, if you don't cite the quote correctly, things like that, more points are going to be deducted than would be if you did that only once in a long paper. So you can certainly quote more than one time if you want to. You could quote twice if you wanted to, but the majority of the words in this short essay should be your own words. So be sure to cite just after your quote or quotes with the author's last name only and the page number in parentheses. So for example, if the author's last name is Smith and you're using a quote from page 2, here is how your in-text citation would look. I give you the example on this accompanying review sheet document. The quote, then in parentheses Smith 2, there's no comma in between, there's no word page, there's no P for page, it's just Smith 2 in quotation, in parentheses, and then your period. So the page numbers on the final exam will likely appear on the text. So you want to look for that. But if they do not, simply count page 1, page 2, so that you know where your quote came from in order to cite it. Remember not to drop the quote, because serious points would be deducted for this. Be sure that there is some wording of your own that's incorporating that quote into your own sentence. And the way you know for sure that you've dropped the quote is if the quote is appearing all by itself as a sentence. There's a period at the end of the sentence before it, and then just the quote in a sentence. You've dropped it, right? So don't do that. You will, as I said, need a works cited page, and you may be asked to include a second source in the real final exam. So both of the sources, if you're asked to do that, they will be provided to you, and the information that you'll need to create the works cited entries for both sources will be given to you. And you can use your little seagull to refresh your memory about works cited. As you're writing your summary paragraph, remember to include author tags. We talked about that before, way back in paper 1. So in other words, use the author's last name. So here's an example. One of the author's main points is that being alone allows one to see his or her own true emotions and reactions. Sarton states that, quote, so the first tag is one of the author's main points. You could have said one of May Sarton's main points or one of Sarton's main points. Sarton states that, quote, solitude is the salt of personhood. It brings out the authentic flavor of every experience. And in the parentheses, you actually could have just put the number 1 for page 1, since you've mentioned her name in the attribution. Notice how that lowercase s in the word solitude is bracketed. The reason for that is that this writer changed that from what was originally an uppercase capital S in May Sarton's actual piece to a lowercase s, so that the quote would fit in grammatically with this writer's own sentence structure. So if you're changing just a letter, or a word to make that quote fit in grammatically with your own writing, then you would bracket it. If you need to change more than a word, then you need to paraphrase and just put it into your own words. You want to use what we call literary present tense. And that's a new concept, but you'll hear a lot more about it in 1020. So in other words, avoid writing in past tense. Sarton stated that, or Sarton believed that. But rather stay in present tense. Sarton states that, and Sarton believes that. And the reason we do that is because it's protocol to do that in college level writing. When you're talking about the ideas or maybe characters in literature, that sort of thing, it's protocol to use literary present tense. The next paragraph that you write, the second paragraph, will focus on your response portion, and it may consist of agreement or disagreement with the author's ideas. So in this case, do you believe that being alone is a good thing? Living alone is positive, or is it negative? It could also consist of your thoughts on how the piece is written. So is it well written? Does it employ logos, logic, ethos? Does the writer seem trustworthy to you? Pathos, emotion. Did it reach you emotionally? Does it use effective techniques or strategies in imparting its ideas? It could also consist of your own personal reflections. So the department says, in this case, that you can use first person I in your response portion, if you're responding on a personal level, but only in that one section, that second paragraph, which is your response. And the rest of the language should be written in a formal way. You may use your little seagull as you're writing. You may look up the meanings of any words you don't understand. And your summary response essay will be graded according to the English 1010 scoring rubric for final exam, which is found at the end of this document. And I obviously will be grading them. So that's the review. And now I just want to touch on some final exam policies and end of the semester policies. So final grades for all of your classes are found by going to My Pellissippi and looking under final grades. And you should know that while we as instructors are obviously responsible for submitting your final grades into the system, we're not the ones responsible for allowing you to see them in My Pellissippi. So the higher powers of the Pellissippi IT world manage all of that. And generally speaking, though, grades become visible to you a day or 2 days after we have uploaded them into the system. But if you were to email us and ask us when exactly they're going to appear, we could not answer that question because we do not know. We do not manage that part of the process at all. So please avoid emailing me with questions like that, and please do not email me asking for your grade on the final exam or for the class. We are absolutely inundated with grading and posting grades for over 100 people in my case, and we just cannot respond to individual inquiries. We have very firm deadlines, and if we don't meet them, we get in trouble. We just don't have time to respond to individual inquiries, sadly. Note that you can see your current running grades for all the assignments in the class so far by going to grades up at the top of our Brightspace course page, and these grades can and will change as assignments are completed and added and figured into the system. Grades are calculated by the Brightspace system. However, because I'm old and I don't always trust technology, I also keep a separate hard copy of grades that I have manually entered all along the way, and I check those calculations against my handwritten copies, and I make sure that they are correct. Now, that does not mean that I'm incapable of making errors, because I'm human, as you well know, and I can certainly make errors, but I do double check everything because I know grades are important, and I want to make sure that they are correct and that there are no Brightspace errors. If you ever feel that there is an error, please email me. For paper 4, note that I will use probably editing marks only, or just very, very brief comments in the grading process rather than full-length comments as I have in the past. The reason being, again, that I have to get through over 100 papers before the finals ever even happen. And then I have to get through the finals, and I just don't have enough time to comment thoroughly on these last major papers of the semester. But I have posted a document entitled Proofreading Marks and Abbreviations that I will use in grading your paper, and you can decipher the meanings of those editing marks. You can find that document by going to course documents and looking for that proofreading sheet, or I may just make very brief comments. Finally, I want you to know that I've really enjoyed having each one of you in my class this semester, and I know it's been, a challenging one for us in many ways. I thank you for hanging in there with me. If I can ever do anything to be of help to each one of you in the future, please do not hesitate to email me, and hopefully to visit me when the world returns to total normalcy, and it will. And a note that I am teaching English 1020 in the spring. I would love to have you there. And I have on my holiday sweater and my snowflake necklace, and I want to wish you and yours a very, very, very blessed and happy holiday season. Thank you.